The girl in the mirror wasn't her. Not really. She had Sarah's eyes, Sarah's dimples, even the tiny scar above her lip from when she fell off her bike at 6. But she was wrong. Off. Like a painting done by someone who never met her. And the scariest part wasn't that she didn't recognize the face, it was that her husband, her coworkers, even her own mother swore nothing had changed. That this was who she'd always been. And the more she dug into her past, the more it disappeared beneath her. Until finally, she found the photo. The one where she stood smiling beside a man she didn't know, holding a baby she couldn't remember ever giving birth to. Sarah Mallory awoke at 4:17 a.m. sharp, drenched in sweat and wrapped so tightly in her bedsheets they felt like restraints. Her chest heaved like she'd been running. The bedroom was still too still. Her husband, Grant, lay beside her, mouth slightly open, one arm across her waist, breathing evenly. A nightmare, then. That had to be it. She slipped out of bed, crept to the bathroom, and flipped on the light. That's when it hit her again. It wasn't a dream. The mirror confirmed what her gut already knew. The woman staring back at her looked just like her, but wasn't. She leaned closer, gripping the edges of the sink so hard her knuckles turned white. Her reflection moved in perfect synchrony, but there was a glassy vacancy in the eyes, something performative in the tilt of the mouth, like a mask mimicking her expressions. Her hands trembled as she splashed cold water on her face. "Get it together," she whispered. Back in bed, she curled up beside Grant and tried to match his rhythm. When he stirred and mumbled something soft, she nodded and feigned sleep. But the unease lingered. It always did now. That day at work, an unremarkable Thursday in mid-April, Sarah's world continued to drift sideways. Her coworkers greeted her like normal. Her desk calendar said April 10th, which matched her phone. But the file on her computer, the Johnson account, wasn't one she remembered managing. And when her assistant, Mallory, came in to ask about the Q2 meeting, she stared blankly, trying to piece together what Q2 even referred to. She Googled herself during lunch. The results were familiar at first, a few old college photos, her LinkedIn, her wedding announcement in the post. But then something caught her eye, a Reddit thread from 2 years ago, posted under her name. Something about dissociation, memory loss, a car accident. She clicked. Error 404. It was gone. That night, after Grant fell asleep, Sarah unlocked the drawer in the hallway cabinet where she kept old journals. She hadn't written in them regularly in years, but maybe they could anchor her. Maybe they could prove she wasn't losing her mind. Only, the journals weren't hers. Same handwriting. Same weird little hearts over the eyes. But the content, the entries, weren't anything she remembered living. Vacations she never took. Friends she didn't know. A pregnancy scare in college that, to her knowledge, never happened. She closed the journal slowly. The room pulsed with a low buzzing, like tinnitus in her skull. From the bottom of the drawer, something crinkled. A photograph. Her hand reached for it like it belonged to someone else. In the photo, she was smiling. Beside her stood a man with sandy brown hair and a crooked grin, not Grant. In her arms, a newborn baby swaddled in blue. Scrawled on the back, "Me, Daniel, and baby Miles, March 6, 2018. Sarah's blood turned to ice. Because she had no memory of that man, or that child. And in 2018, she was living in Seattle, alone. And she had never, not once, been pregnant. Sarah stared at the photo under the weak glow of the hallway light until her eyes burned. The date, the names, the baby's face, scrunched and red and impossibly real. She flipped the photo again, searching for any sign of forgery, a seam, a tear, anything. But it felt authentic. A moment captured. Her own smile chilled her the most. It was genuine, joyful. That was her. Laughing, holding a baby she had no memory of, with a man she didn't recognize. She Googled the name, Daniel Miles. Too broad. She tried, Daniel Miles plus Sarah Mallory plus Seattle. Nothing. Heart pounding, she typed, Daniel Miles, obituary. Too many results. She scrolled endlessly, fingers numb, eyes scanning for his face. At 2:47 a.m., she gave up. The next morning, she confronted Grant. "Does the name Daniel Miles mean anything to you?" He blinked at her over his coffee mug. "No. Should it?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "What about a baby? Me having a baby in 2018? Grant laughed, actually laughed. "Sarah, we met in 2019. You were living in that tiny studio in Capitol Hill, remember? You were working for that nonprofit that smelled like mold." She tried again. "But what if I told you I found a photo of me holding a baby? With someone named Daniel. He tilted his head. You've been having those dreams again, haven't you? What dreams? The ones you used to tell me about. The vivid ones. Where you wake up crying. I don't remember telling you that. Grant reached for her hand across the table, warm and steady. Babe, I think we should call Dr. Rayner again. Dr. Rayner. Her neurologist. The one she hadn't seen in nearly 2 years. Sarah's grip tightened on her coffee cup. You think I'm losing it? I think you've been through a lot. More than you like to admit. He was trying to help. She could see that, but it only deepened the chill in her bones. Later that day, she visited her mother. The photo sat inside her purse like a ticking bomb. Over chamomile tea in the old lace-covered kitchen, Sarah watched her mother closely. Waited until the silence settled. Mom, she said softly, was I ever pregnant? Her mother blinked. What? In 2018. Do you remember me being pregnant? Or knowing someone named Daniel Miles? Her mother frowned. Is this a joke? No. I'm serious. She shook her head. Honey, I don't know what you've been reading or watching, but you've never been pregnant. And I'd remember if you were dating anyone named Daniel. You hardly dated anyone in Seattle. Sarah pulled out the photo and slid it across the table. Her mother picked it up, adjusted her glasses. Her lips pressed into a thin line. Her eyes scanned it for a long time. Finally, this is photoshopped. It's not. It has to be. Look at my face, Mom. That's me. You don't think I'd know? Her mother put the photo down. Didn't answer. Just looked at her like something had shifted. Like Sarah was becoming someone else. As Sarah left the house that afternoon, her mother called after her with a voice that cracked halfway. Please stop digging, Sarah. That night, Sarah waited until Grant fell asleep. Then she went into the guest room, locked the door, and pulled the photo out again. Her hands were shaking. There was only one thing left to try. She flipped it over. Then, with a pencil, traced lightly along the back. Over the inscription, me, Daniel, and baby Miles, March 6, 2018. But something strange happened. As she rubbed gently, another layer of ink appeared beneath the words. Barely visible, but there. She held it under her desk lamp. The imprint of different handwriting, written first and then scribbled over. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Sarah couldn't sleep after that. Not even pretend. She sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room until dawn, the photograph clutched in her hand, turning it over and over like it might crack open and explain itself. The second inscription, faint, hidden beneath the date, felt like a scream smothered beneath a pillow. If you're reading this, it's already too late. Too late for what? By 7 a.m., she was dialing Dr. Rayner's office. The receptionist, a chipper voice named Lacey, hesitated when Sarah gave her name. I don't see a Sarah Mallory in the system. That can't be right. I was a patient for over a year. After my migraine started in 2020. 1 second. Sarah heard soft typing. Then, finally, I'm sorry, Ms. Mallory. There's no record of you ever being treated here. That's not possible. I sat in his office. I remember the stupid lavender air freshener. I remember the, you're welcome to come in and speak with Dr. Rayner, if you'd like. She hung up, cold spreading through her spine like frostbite. At 10:15 a.m., she arrived at the office. The lobby looked exactly the same. Fake bamboo, calming spa music, a receptionist who avoided eye contact. Dr. Rayner greeted her at the door with a polite, unfamiliar smile. Ms. Mallory, Lacey said you had questions. He looked older than she remembered. Or maybe it was just the distance in his eyes. Don't you recognize me? I'm afraid not. Should I? She stared at him. I was your patient. For nearly 18 months. You diagnosed me with complex migraines. With dissociation symptoms. You prescribed lamotrigine. His face didn't change. I'm sorry, but I've never treated you. Sarah pulled the photo from her bag. What about him? Do you recognize him? He took the photo carefully, squinting. Then he shook his head. No. Should I? Something inside her fractured. She stepped back, nearly knocked over a lamp. This can't be happening. Ms. Mallory, he said gently. May I ask, have you recently experienced any traumatic events? Loss of time? Sudden shifts in perception? Her breath caught. Because the way he said it. Not unfamiliar, not clinical, but rehearsed. Like he'd said it before. To her. I need my file, she whispered. I was your patient. Maybe someone deleted it. Maybe. May I show you something? He walked behind the desk, tapped his computer, then turned the monitor toward her. This is a search of every Sarah S. Mallory, even close phonetic matches. No record. Not just here, across our regional system. Sarah stared at the blank screen like it might blink into life. She left the office in a daze. The world outside felt wrong, too bright, too loud. People moved past her like ghosts, their faces slightly blurred at the edges. She barely remembered the drive home. That night, she took out all her journals. Every notebook, every planner, every photo album. Cross-referencing dates, names, handwriting. It felt like she was doing forensic work on her own life. Then she noticed something odd. In the 2018 planner, the one she thought she barely used, there were 3 blank pages torn clean from the middle of March. No rips. No residue. Just gone. She flipped to the inside cover. A tiny smudge caught her eye, faded black ink, almost invisible. She tilted it under the light. A single line, written in hurried cursive. He's coming back for the rest soon. Burn what's left. Sarah's throat tightened. She dropped the planner. Something shifted in the hallway, a creak on the floorboards, soft and deliberate. She wasn't alone. Sarah froze. The creak had come from the hallway. Slow. Measured. Like someone trying not to be heard. She reached for the nearest object, a ceramic lamp, and held it close to her chest like a shield. Her breath caught in her throat, shallow and rapid. Another step. Closer. Then a voice. Sarah? It was Grant. She exhaled hard, set the lamp down, and opened the door. Grant stood barefoot in the hallway, hair tousled from sleep. Why are you up? It's almost 2. I was just going through some things, she lied. Couldn't sleep. He studied her. You okay? Sarah hesitated. Do you remember what I told you this morning? About the photo? He nodded. Yeah. And you still think it's just stress? Hallucination? Grant stepped closer, placing a hand on her shoulder. I think you're scared. I think something's wrong, and you need help. The worst part? He said it like he loved her. Like he believed she was breaking. She nodded slowly. Okay. Maybe you're right. But that night, when he was asleep again, Sarah returned to the torn planner. Her fingers ran over the faint ink. Burn what's left. She packed every journal, every odd photograph, and the planner into a cardboard box and drove 30 minutes to her sister's lake house, the one no one used off-season. Out there, under the stars and the wide, uncaring dark, she poured gasoline over the box and set it ablaze. The pages curled like leaves. Her handwriting blackened. Faces melted into ash. The air filled with the smell of chemicals and memory. She stood back, watching it burn. But just before the flames collapsed into cinders, something strange happened. A single page, untouched, whole, fluttered upward on the wind and landed at her feet. Sarah picked it up. It was a photograph. Not one she remembered ever seeing. But she knew what it was. A hospital room. Dim. Fluorescent light. She was in the bed, hooked up to wires. Pale. Lips cracked. Her hair buzzed short. Her face gaunt. Beside her, the same man from the first photo, Daniel. This time, he looked devastated. Eyes red. Holding her hand. And just behind them, reflected faintly in the hospital room's wall-length window, was Grant. Standing. Watching. Expressionless. She staggered backward, nearly tripping over a rock. This wasn't right. That photo, it couldn't exist. She'd never been in a hospital. Never been that sick. Grant didn't even know her in 2018. He said so himself. But there it was. Proof that everything was a lie. She drove home in silence, the photo pressed between the pages of a book like a holy relic. At stoplights, she checked the rear view. Every time, headlights followed. Same distance. Same rhythm. She made 3 extra turns. The car stayed behind. At a red light, she got out. But the car sped off before she could reach it. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she logged back onto her laptop and dug into the deep web, forums, locked threads, anything about memory loss, false identities, implanted pasts. One thread stood out. For those who think their life was rewritten, ask yourself what you forgot in order to remember what they gave you. And below that, check your scars. They don't lie. Sarah ran to the bathroom, pulled off her shirt, turned her back to the mirror. There, beneath her shoulder blade, a faint line. Almost surgical. She traced it with shaking fingers. She had no memory of it. The scar was real. Sarah pressed a fingertip against it, watching herself in the mirror as if waiting to catch her reflection betraying her again. It was a clean line, barely raised, like an incision. Surgical. Precise. She had never had surgery. Not that she remembered. She barely slept. Her dreams were shapeless things now, flashes of sterile rooms, voices behind glass, a child crying from far away. Always far away. By morning, she had made a decision. If Grant was lying, if her own mother was lying, she needed someone outside the circle. Someone who didn't know her. Someone with access to truth that couldn't be rewritten. She drove 3 hours north to the records department at Jefferson Medical Center, where the hospital in the photo might have been. It was a long shot, but the fluorescent lights in that picture, the layout of the walls, they matched images she'd found online. This was her only lead. The woman at the records desk was kind but wary. Sarah handed her the printed photograph. I'm trying to identify where this was taken. I think it might have been here. The woman squinted. This does look familiar. Sarah's breath hitched. Can you check if I was ever a patient here? Sarah Mallory. Born April 4th, 1991. The woman typed, then frowned. No file. Sarah forced herself to stay calm. What about Daniel Miles? Or Miles Mallory? The woman hesitated. You're not family. I might be, Sarah said quietly. Please, just tell me if the name shows up. The woman glanced around, then typed again. After a moment, her brows knit. There was a Miles Daniel Mallory. Infant admission. March 6, 2018. Sarah gripped the edge of the counter. Admitted for what? I can't say. Is he? Her voice cracked. Is he alive? The woman looked at her then. Something like pity passed over her face. There's no discharge listed, but the file is marked restricted. Locked? That usually means. Sarah nodded slowly, swallowing the scream building in her throat. Can I see where the room is? From the photo? The woman hesitated, then gestured. 3rd floor. East wing. Room 317. But that floor is closed now. Renovation. Sarah took the stairs. Her footsteps echoed in the stairwell like warning shots. The 3rd floor was dark. Half the lights flickered. Paint buckets and plastic sheeting littered the hallway. She found room 317. The door was unlocked. Inside, the layout matched exactly. The angle of the bed. The window. She stood in the spot Daniel had been standing in the photo. Faced the bed. Then turned toward the window. And froze. Because in the faint reflection, this exact angle, you could still make out the outline of the man in the background. His features blurred, but the silhouette unmistakable. It wasn't just Grant. It was Grant in a hospital badge, holding a clipboard, wearing scrubs. She stumbled back, hitting the bed frame. A metallic clang echoed through the room. A janitor passing outside poked his head in. You're not supposed to be here. I just needed to see this room. Please, do you know who used to work here? Back in 2018? The janitor looked at her for a long beat. Then, almost like confessing a sin, this was part of Psych Ward C. They moved it all underground now. New privacy policy. Psych? Sarah barely made it back to her car. Her hand shook so hard she dropped her keys twice. She turned on the ignition, clutching the wheel like it might keep her grounded. If she had been in a psych ward, if she had given birth to a baby named Miles, if Daniel was real, then Grant wasn't her husband. He was her handler. And she was living inside a lie so carefully constructed, she'd mistaken it for a home. Sarah didn't drive home. She couldn't. The idea of walking back into that house, into that stage set, into a life scripted by someone else, made her skin crawl. She pulled into a gas station 2 towns away, locked herself in a bathroom stall, and dry-heaved until her throat burned. She'd been committed. She'd had a child, a husband, and now none of it existed in any official record. Like someone had taken a scalpel to her life and excised everything that mattered. Her phone buzzed. A text from Grant. Hey babe, you okay? Haven't heard from you. Everything all right? She stared at the screen. The 3 dots popped up. He was still typing. She turned the phone off. Instead of going home, she drove to the only person left who might tell her the truth, her old friend from college, Nadine, a nurse practitioner who once worked in post-acute psychiatric care, and someone who owed Sarah more than a few favors. Nadine's face fell when she opened the door. Oh my God. You look like hell. What happened? Sarah held up a USB drive. I need you to look up something. Quietly. Nadine hesitated but let her in. While Sarah sipped scalding tea in the kitchen, Nadine pulled up the internal network. What am I looking for? Patient file. Miles Daniel Mallory. Born March 6, 2018. Mother, Sarah Mallory. Nadine typed, brow furrowed. Then she stopped. Jesus. Sarah leaned over her shoulder. The file wasn't fully locked, but most of it was redacted. Black lines everywhere. No image. No birth weight. No cause of death. But one note stood out. Patient born via emergency cesarean following maternal episode. Mother displayed signs of dissociative fugue and severe identity fragmentation. Child remained in neonatal ICU for 6 days before disappearance. Disappearance? Sarah whispered. Nadine scrolled. That's all it says. No autopsy. No transfer. No adoption records. Just gone. Sarah's mouth went dry. There was a child. And he vanished. She turned to Nadine. What's identity fragmentation? Nadine hesitated. Usually tied to trauma. Severe cases. Sometimes it's how the brain protects itself, splits reality to survive. People lose time. Forget entire pieces of their life. Sarah's hands were shaking. But how would someone else erase everything? My doctor, my mother, Grant, they all insist nothing happened. Like they believe it. Sarah, Nadine said slowly, there's something else in here. A name. Not in the patient file. In the internal memo log. It's connected. She clicked open a hidden note. Subject's post-dissociative environment to be monitored and maintained by operator Grant Ellison, per contract. Memory suppression successful. Reinsert periodically to preserve compliance. Sarah staggered back like she'd been hit. Operator. Not husband. Handler. She was part of a program. Monitored. Manipulated. Reinserted? Nadine looked up, pale as ash. Sarah, what the hell is this? Sarah didn't answer. Because something else had just surfaced. A memory. Shaky. Like a film reel with missing frames. A cold room. Her wrist strapped. A voice behind a glass wall. Don't fight it, Sarah. We're giving you a better life. She dropped the mug. It shattered. Her knees buckled. Because now she remembered. She remembered the screen. The blood. The baby being pulled from her. The man, Daniel, crying as they sedated her. She remembered the moment they told her he was dead. And the moment she stopped believing them. Because she heard him crying in the next room. Because he wasn't dead. They just took him. They took everything. Sarah drove without knowing where she was going. The sun was setting, a dying ember smearing orange across the windshield as her car sliced through back roads. The USB drive with Miles's redacted files sat in the passenger seat, blinking faintly like a heartbeat. Somewhere out there, her son might be alive. Somewhere, the people who had rewritten her life were still watching. She found herself pulling into the long gravel driveway of an old facility tucked behind thick trees. Faded government signage hung loose from rusted bolts. Willow Creek Behavioral Center. Closed in 2020. But Nadine had seen it. Tucked inside the metadata of the memo file, a reference to this place. Subject last housed at Willow Creek Observation Unit, Room 12A. Sarah stepped out into the brittle silence of a place forgotten by the world. The doors were chained, but the back entrance had rotted through. She slipped inside. The smell hit her first, mildew, rot, something more chemical beneath it. She wandered through dark hallways lined with peeling paint and wheelchairs left in corners like broken bones. Every step echoed like it might wake ghosts. Room 12A was still marked. She opened the door and stopped breathing. The room was small. A single bed bolted to the floor. A child's drawing taped to the wall, faded crayon lines forming a stick figure woman with bright yellow hair, holding hands with a smaller figure. A name scrawled in shaky block letters. Mommy. Sarah's knees gave out. She crawled to the paper, touched it like it might dissolve. The signature at the bottom was unmistakable. Miles. Age 5. He'd been here. Hidden. Monitored. Left to draw pictures of a mother they told him didn't exist. She opened the closet. Inside were bins of files, patient logs, and a single box labeled Operator Log, Ellison, G. She tore it open. Inside, documents, transcripts, photographs. Her life from the outside in. Notes about her moods. Her reactions. The moment she found the first photo. Each discovery tracked. Logged. November 2nd. Subject observed crying at mirror. Phase 1 deterioration confirmed. December 14th. Subject attempted memory retrieval. Implant remained stable. No contact with suppressed identity. January 30th. Photo resurfaced. Unplanned breach. Initiating containment. They knew. They always knew. Sarah's eyes locked onto a final entry, dated just a week ago. Subject nearing full breach. Recommend asset removal. Child remains in holding pending further instruction. Child remains in holding. He was still alive. Not just a ghost of memory, not just a drawing on a wall, but real. The page listed a new location. A foster home. A name, Miles Carter. Age 7. Fostered under a false birth certificate. Address in a quiet neighborhood on the edge of Redmond. Sarah drove like a woman possessed. By the time she reached the house, it was nightfall. She parked down the street. Watched the windows. A porch light. A silhouette, a child at the table, drawing. She walked up the steps slowly, like each one might vanish beneath her feet. Then the door opened. The foster mother blinked at her. "Can I help you?" But behind her, the boy peeked out. Brown hair. Soft eyes. And something impossible in his gaze. Recognition. "Mom." The woman turned, startled. "Miles, what?" But Sarah was already falling to her knees. She couldn't breathe, couldn't move, could only stare, because in his hand, clutched like treasure, was a crumpled photo of her from before. He ran to her. She wrapped her arms around him like the world might end again. And maybe it would. Maybe Grant would come. Maybe they'd try again. But it didn't matter anymore, because the truth had cracked through the surface of their carefully constructed reality. And she remembered now. All of it. Even the part that would haunt her forever. The moment she'd begged them to let him go. To give him a better life. The sedation. The cold whisper. "You won't remember this, Sarah. You'll think you never had him. You'll thank us someday." She hadn't thanked them. She'd found him. And this time, no one was taking him away.